We are looking at chapter number 1, how, when and where. In history, how, when and where, what we are discussing is how important are the dates. This is a picture where Brahmanas, they are offering Shastras to Britannia, right? This is frontispiece to the first map produced by James Rennell in 1782. Now, Rennell was asked by Robert Clive to produce maps of Hindustan. An enthusiastic supporter of British conquest of India, Rennell saw preparation of maps as essential for the process of domination of India. So this picture tries to suggest that Indians willingly gave over their ancient text to Britannia, the symbol of British power, as if they were asking them to protect the Indian culture. So this is Hindustan by J. Rennell. Here the books are being shared, and this picture where this person is standing, it has a lion on the back side. So this is important. With the pretext, we start how important are dates, why the dates are there. It's always all time debatable thing that history means just learning the dates. You might find people saying that I find history boring because it is all about memorizing the dates, only memorizing the dates. But history is also about the changes over a time. That is what was in the past, what things were in the past, and how things have changed. So whenever we compare the past with the present, we refer to time. So we talk of before and after. So here we see that a cup of tea, everyone, you and me, we drink. But this cup of tea we have not started drinking this tea in 1 day or 2 days. It's a continuous process. The railways, how railways came into existence. Reading the paper in the morning, you might be curious about how people got to hear about things before newspaper began to be printed. So you must be answering that. That is, that there are certain ways we cannot, or there are certain things which were going on in the history that we cannot just say one date. But there are certain points where you can, or we can, or the historians can really say that this was the date. First of all, the things have not changed in a day. That's what I said. So there is a span of time. There is a span of time, and it just didn't happen in 1 day. Everything took a time. So you can talk about a time duration or a period. But when it comes to, say, a king, when king was crowned, the year he married, the year he had a child, the year he fought a particular war, the year he died, the year the next ruler succeeded to the throne, for these events we can have specific dates. So for some events we cannot have dates, we have a duration or a period, but for some events we will have some date, proper dates. So which dates? Which dates? So this is an advertisement. I'll tell you about this. How do we choose the dates? So the dates we select, the dates around which we compose our story of the past, are not important on their own. They become important or vital because we focus on a particular set of events as important. When our focus changes, if we begin to look at new issues with a new outlook, a new set of dates becomes significant to us. Just take an example. Before I go ahead, this is an advertisement that actually created taste, because we were discussing about the tea here, that we have not just in certain morning we just somebody woke up and he said, I want tea. No, it's not like that. Tea, with a period, it took a time and we started liking. That's how tea is in our culture. Whenever somebody comes to us, we will offer tea. So this is Lipton's tea, and all advertisement help us understand how market or new products were created and new tastes were popularized. This is a 1922 advertisement for Lipton tea. See, this is Lipton tea. Still we talk about Lipton. Okay? This suggests that royalty all over the world is associated with this tea. If you see in the background, you see outer wall of an Indian palace. In foreground, there is a seat, seated on horseback is the third son of Queen Victoria of Britain, Prince Arthur, who was given the title Duke of Connaught. We were taking an example that in the histories written by British historians in India, the rule of each Governor General was very important. So these histories that they wrote began with the rule of first Governor General, Warren Hastings, ended with last Viceroy, that is Lord Mountbatten. So this in separate chapters, we read about them in order, like Hastings, then Wellesley, Bentinck, Dalhousie, Canning, Lawrence, Lytton, Ripon, Curzon, Harding and Irwin. So this is a never-ending succession of Governor General and Viceroys. So these dates are linked with personalities, their activities, policies, achievement. There is nothing outside their life. So the chronology of their lives mark the different chapters of history of British India. So this was written by somebody and they gave all the emphasis to these people, means Governor Generals and Viceroy. Because normal people were never discussed. So when we write a history or a story, we divide it into chapters. Why? And there is a coherence between these chapters. Because it is to tell a story in a way that makes some sense and that can be followed. So we focus on those events that help us to give shape to the story we are telling. And in the histories that revolve around the life of British Governor Generals, the activities of Indians, they simply do not fit. They don't find any space there. So there need to be some other format, other way of looking into history of that time. This is the picture of or a graphic of Warren Hastings. He became the first Governor General of India in 1773. So while history books narrated the deeds of Governor Generals, biographies glorified them as persons and painting projected them as powerful figures. So how do we periodize? That is periods, events, chapters. In 1817, James Mill, he was a Scottish economist and political philosopher. He published a massive 3-volume book, and it was named as A History of British India. He divided the Indian history into 3 periods: Hindu, Muslim and British, right? And this actually periodization became widely accepted. But can we actually think like this? Or because at that time other faiths were also there. If some Muslim ruler are there, then Hindus ruler were also there. So this is one aspect which James Mill put in front of us or placed in front of us. But is this Hindu, Muslim, British actually demarcate different periods? We need to question this. We need to discuss this. So Mill thought that all Asian societies were at lower level of civilization than Europe. According to him, before the British came to India, Hindu and Muslim, these despots ruled the country. And religious intolerance, caste taboos and superstitious practices, they dominated the social life, that is the communities. So British rule, Mill, what he said that could it civilize India? So that idea of his, he introduced that introduction of European manners, arts, institutions, law in India is important. He also suggested that the British should conquer all the territories in India in order to ensure the enlightenment and the happiness of the Indian people. Okay, for India was not capable of progressing without British help. That is what Mill suggested. So British rule represented, that's what he thought, all the forces of progress and civilization. So the period before British rule was darkness. Can we think about that? Can this conception is agreed to us? What we were saying, that Hindu and Muslim, or what Mill said, see, variety of faith existed simultaneously in these period. Okay, so this religion cannot be a basis. It may be, but it cannot be only the basis. So when we moved away from British classification, historians actually divided Indian history into ancient, medieval and modern. Now these divisions also has some problems, like the Mill did, James Mill did. It is the periodization which was borrowed from West. Okay, at that time, how it was associated, the modern period was associated with the growth of all the forces of modernity, that is science, reason, democracy, liberty and equality. So medieval was a term used to describe a society where these features of modern society did not exist. Right? Can we take these ideas also about the freedom and liberty? Means at British rule, when British rule, there was actually no equality, freedom or liberty, nor was the period one of economic growth and progress while we were under British rule. So many historians, they refer to this period as colonial. Rather than saying something else, they say that this is colonial, औपनिवेशिक. So what is colonial? We saw that, and we are going to see about this in detail. British came to our country, conquered the country, established their rule and subjugating local Nawabs and Raja. How they controlled our economy and society, and they collected revenue to meet all their expenses, bought the goods they wanted at lower price, they produced crops they needed for exporting, and also we'll talk about that how these changes affected various things, lives of different people. Now British rule brought about in values and tastes also, customs and practices also changed. So when the subjugation of one country by another leads to this kind of political, economic, social and cultural changes, we refer to the process as colonization. So this is colonization. Okay. So how do we know what was going on at that time? This is the report to the Home Department. I'll just read this. But before that, what sources do historians use in writing about the last 250 years of Indian history? So we have administration produces records. One very important source is the official record of British administration. British believed that writing is very important. Every instruction, plan, policy, decision, agreement, investigation had to be clearly written. And once this was done, they thought that it could be properly studied and debated. And this conviction produced an administrative culture of memos, notings and reports which are still there in the government organizations. So the British also felt that all important documents and letters needed to be carefully preserved. So they set up record rooms that are attached to all administrative institutions like the village Tehsildar office, collectorate, the commissioner office, the provincial secretariats, the law courts. All have their own record rooms. And archives and museums, these are specialized institutions. These were also established to preserve important records. The letters and memo that moved from one branch of administration to another in 19th century can still be read in the archives. Okay, so these notes, reports that district official prepared, or the instruction and directives that were sent by the official at the top to provincial administrators, you can study that also. So in the early years of 19th century, these documents were carefully copied out and beautifully written by calligraphists. Who are these calligraphists? Who are master of beautiful writing, by those who specialize in the art of beautiful writing. And by the middle of 19th century, when printing spread, multiple copies of these records were printed as proceedings of each government department. So here is a picture. This is the National Archives of India, which came up in 1920s. So when New Delhi was built, the National Museum and the National Archives were both located close to the Viceregal Palace. This location reflects the importance these institutions had in British imagination. So I was just reading this, that in 1946, the colonial government in India was trying to put down a mutiny that broke out on the ships of Royal Indian Navy. So here there are some kind of reports the Home Department got from the different dockyards. Like Bombay. Bombay, what was happening there? Arrangements have been made for the army to take over ships and establishments. Royal Navy ships are remaining outside the harbour. In Karachi, what was happening? 301 mutineers are under arrest and few more strongly suspected are to be arrested. All establishments are under military guard. In VIII, Visakhapatnam, the position is completely under control and no violence has occurred. So these military guards have been placed on ships and establishments, and no further trouble is expected except that few men may refuse to work. So this is from Director of Intelligence Headquarters, Indian Command Situation, which was found in this report. At this time, this survey, that is Sarvekshan, this became very important. Under colonial administration, British believed that the country had to be properly known in order to effectively administer. That is why surveying became important. So the surveying was done, detailed surveys were done to map the entire country. In the villages, revenue surveys were conducted, and the effort was to know the topography, the soil quality, the flora, fauna, local histories, and the cropping pattern. Okay. From the end of 19th century, census operations, and this prepared detailed record of the number of people in all the provinces of India, noting information on the caste, religion, and occupation. So census is population counting. There were many other surveys like botanical surveys, zoological surveys, archaeological surveys, anthropological surveys, forest surveys. Okay. Now this is just a paper of custard apple. This is Sitafal, 1770. So botanical gardens and natural history museums established by British collected plant specimen and information about their uses. So local artists were asked to draw pictures of these specimens, and historians are now looking at the way such information was gathered and what this information actually revealed about the nature of colonialism. And this is the mapping and surveying operation in progress in Bengal, a drawing by James Prinsep in 1832. Just notice these instruments at that time. Here is the surveying. Now, what official records don't tell? So we have vast corpus of records now. But we still remember that these are official records. They don't tell us about official, they tell us what the official thoughts are. But what they were interested in, what they wish to preserve the prosperity, that is what we know, because this is official record. But these records do not always help us to understand what other people in the country felt, what lay behind their actions. So we need to look elsewhere for that. We begin to search for other sources, plenty, like official records. We have diaries of people, account of pilgrims, travelers, autobiographies of important personalities, popular booklets that were sold in the local bazaars. So as this printing spread, newspapers were published and issues were debated in public. Leaders and reformers, they wrote to spread their ideas, and poets and novelists wrote to express their feelings. So all these resources, records also, and these which we talked about, we can get an idea about what was going on, tribal, peasant, the worker in the mines, what is going on, right? But not all the information is available, but still what we are available, will make a chain and we'll try to find out what was happening at that time. This is a picture, the rebels of 1857, and images need to be carefully studied for the project the viewpoint. Actually. So the image can be found in several illustrated books produced by British after 1857 rebellion. This caption, the rebels of 1857, says the mutinous sepoys share the loot. That is, in British representations, the rebel appear as greedy as vicious and brutal. Here there is an example of not fit for human consumption. So this is a police line not giving proper food. So people or the policemen actually put a strike. So this is how I'm trying to make a preface or pretext so that we'll be able to understand the next discussions. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.